Through the mists comes forth RPGaDay! In the year 2021, RPGaDay comes back for its 8th year. A time in August when every day we tackle another question or topic by answering in a way that uplifts the gaming community and answers questions people might have about this crazy hobby of ours that serves to build the community and bring it up, that many of us make blogs about, video blogs, art, or great works. In celebration of the community of gamers, I welcome you to RPGaDay 2021. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I am Rob, the Dungeon Tutor, also going as Omnisci from time to time. And I'm here for RPGaDay 2021, again, trying to put out positive things for the community, different ideas I have, drawing from my own experiences. And this is the 19th day of August, the 19th day of RPGaDay, which has the word theme as its topic word. Now, I think that one of the things that really serves role-playing games well is that most of them have a solid theme. You can, as a banner statement, describe a theme for a game makes it so much easier to sell it to people. For instance, I'm just going at random here. Game I'm playing right now, actually. Mighty Protectors. The theme of this is, quite simply, it's four-color superhero life, existence, adventures, doing cool things as a superhero. It has the basic rules that allow you to make just about any superhero you can think of, depending on the power level you're running. And you can pitch yourself up against other supervillains. You can throw yourself at whatever. In my game, my characters have to deal with real life as much as they have to worry about supervillains. So they're frequently worried about what's the government going to do with superheroes, because they're playing in our world. It's a more realistic world that suddenly superhero powers just got dropped onto people. And now there's people rising up who are not evil or good. There's a lot of shades of gray. So they're just trying to deal with people as people. And sometimes it works and they get new allies, and now they're all tangled up in some late game stuff that is kind of spiraling further and further and further and further. So it's going to get to almost a whirlwind, dizzying level of, oh my gosh, all these things are happening at once, which is the test of great superheroes. So with Mighty Protectors, it's kind of it has a world, it has a vector of what it's doing and where it's going, but at the same time I had no problems with using that game and putting my own spin on it for the modern world as of 2020, which was plenty bleak enough. So, another game, we'll throw this in, since this happens to be here, GUI Cube's Zyathe, The Weirded World, has its own theme. It is a theme of a mid-fantasy. I'm not going to say it's certainly not low fantasy. I hesitate to say that it's high fantasy for a couple of reasons. Number one, magic has been tainted in this game, so a lot of the people, at least written into the subtext of the game, don't like to rely entirely on magic. Magical societies have come and they failed hard. And there's a lot of there's bad things in magic in Zyathe. So the idea is that the potential of the world was infinite. And now bad things have happened, and people are they have to adapt to this world where magic is broken and has spawned monsters and abominations, and outside of the areas that have been reclaimed and kept safe, there's a lot of stuff out there that is, evil and horrible and has been caused by magic turning bad. And there's a whole story behind it and everything too. That's all adds to the theme and everything. But the general theme is of a world that has been bitten by corruption and is dying as a result. But in the meantime, it's got, some bright heroes that step up and fantasy elements to it. So it has a higher top end than a lot of worlds. I mean, for example, Middle-earth. Magic theoretically has a lot of power and potential, but you never really see it. It's more subtle. And this, magic is overt, way over the top, but it's also frequently horrible because of what's happened to their world. And I think when you have a theme, a concrete idea behind your world that unifies it, it makes it easier to sell. Something like GURPS, the generic universal role-playing system, is kind of hard to sell. You could say, well, you could do anything with it. And most game masters are going to go, well, yeah, but what can I do with it now? Well, anything you want. But how much work am I going to have to put into it? Because you can give me the core book, and there's nothing in it that I can use without doing all of my own work. I can take Mighty Protectors here, and it gives me people, it gives me things, it gives me a place to put everything. I let you guys make characters out of this book, and great, you're a superhero team that works with these guys. Now you can go and get them. With GURPS, I can open it up, and I'm like, okay, wow, you can make characters. We can make very detailed and excellent characters, and then everything else I've got to come up with, which means I got to go buy more books, possibly, and some of those books can really help to tie in things. Or I can make my own stuff. And technically, I can make anything I can dream up with GURPS. But it's more work. So, because that lack of unified theme, it's a brilliant concept, but it's a little bit harder to sell because it doesn't have a unified theme outside of you can do anything. So, and then after that, you can usually be a fan of the books that bring a theme to that game. And I can go down on and on and on. All the games that I have are either some sort of universal, or they generally have some sort of a theme attached. Dungeons & Dragons, for instance, by default, has a theme, and I think they understand that. The theme is the various things that are going on in the world of the Forgotten Realms is kind of the default theme of Dungeons & Dragons these days. If you want to play in Matt Mercer's world, you can go and get the Wildemount book, and then it has its own themes and storylines that are going through that. You can get the Adventure Paths, and that gives you a theme for your adventure that you are going to follow through to the completion of it. But that's a little, again, a broad template that you can put your own story into, and back in the day, when that was all you had, you were a lot more willing to do that. I think what really has gripped people, and historically for Dungeons & Dragons, was when they gave you a theme. Dark Sun. It's a brutal world. Your characters are tough, powerful, yes, but the world is going to kick your butt. The monsters are huge and uncompromising. The world is dying. You're constantly struggling for survival. Even as you get more powerful, it doesn't get that much easier. And ultimately, if you get to a center of civilization where you can avoid the huge, nasty, toothy creatures that are out there, well, there's a God King there who wants to talk to you about working for him. And you don't really have a lot of choices there, or he's just going to swarm you with Templars. Or you've got Planescape. The universe beckons. There are experiences beyond what you'll ever find in a Prime Material adventure. Sure, you can go and spend years exploring the various venues of Sigil, the City of Doors, but you can also go out to any one of the Outer Realms without having to be a super powerful wizard. You just find the right gate and the right key, and you're off to Mount Celestia, or you're out to Pandemonium, and you can have adventures out there that are, absolutely mind-bending in their scope. You could, for instance, get You could get Spelljammer. I want to play with spaceships in D&D. They're not going to have warp drive. They're going to look like sailing ships, but they're going to work out in space. I want horror as my theme. I've got Ravenloft. It's their own ideas, a variety of successful horror stories that had taken place, starting with the Ravenloft adventure, of course, is the banner with Count Strahd von Zarovich. But now we've got all these other horror stories that we kind of liked the ideas of, and we found a way to take all the classics and cram them into the world so that players can tell the horror story that fits the slant they're aiming for. So if you want tragedy, you want pathos, you want just mind-numbing horror, they've got a different realm in there for all of you. And I think those were the times, really, when D&D was at its most successful. Sure, a lot of people like reliving the stories or playing around in the world that people like Ed Greenwood have painted for us for this Dalelands and all that's gone on through his various stories, or the works of Salvatore through the Sword Coast with Drist and company. Sure, sometimes that's all you need too. But that also has kind of a theme, a venue, and it's classic D&D fantasy as its overall theme. And what else you're going to put into that depends on the focus of your group. Are you going to have themes of challenging preconceived notions like Drist? I'm a drow, but I'm not looking to, enslave you. I'm not doing anything evil. I'm generally a pretty decent guy if you don't mess with me. Or all the other characters that have their own things that they struggle with. Sometimes just telling a great fantasy story is a pretty solid theme in and of itself, but some of the great ones really had their own. Shadowrun, of course, is a game that's purely built around the trappings of the world and all the crazy potentials of the story they've concocted. And you can pick your themes. There's a lot of obvious ones. There's the themes of challenging authority because the authority is corrupt with these corporations ruling everybody, and literally ruling in many cases. The term wage slave is not that far from the tree. You are actually in indentured servitude to your corporation. They take care of all of your needs. They make you think you're living a good life. They ruthlessly exploit you. And if you're no longer useful, you're done. Unless it's to their advantage to hold you up and say, look, this person is no longer useful, but they gave us good service, so we're going to take care of them. And they might just take care of you. Cut corners, save some money. But there's also ideas of, racial intolerance. You have the Humanist Poly Club and other no-good-nicks who hate other races because they are what they are. And you find, intolerant troll gangs that, again, you're not a troll, so you're in the wrong turf, Tiny. That's something that you can explore. The ins and outs of gang life and urban despair. You can cover that. There's a lot of interesting themes that are going on in Shadowrun. But ultimately, a lot of it is meat and machine. Where does the machine end and the man begin? Or woman. General man, but the idea that there's a struggle upon those who choose to, replace parts of their own body, willingly or not, with machine. The idea that the essence of a person is going to rail against that, and as it gets chipped away by being replaced more and more with machine for personal upgrades or of necessity, the body is withering under that, and you can only go so far before you either turn mad or die. So that's interesting too. And a lot of these themes are kind of a la carte. You pick what you choose to focus on. If you never really worry about a person's essence and purity of the body, more so than just assigning a number to their essence and going with it, well, you can do that. You can comfortably ignore that. Or you can take a really personal look into it, and as, that street samurai with a 0.2 essence, maybe they have to come to grips with the fact that they're now more machine than a human. And what do? Do they turn to drugs when they start to get in their black mood so they can get over it and keep functioning? Do they spend days just jacked in and dismiss their meat parts because the metal is the only thing that they feel alive in anymore? You can really get into some interesting concepts and themes that way. So yeah, I feel very strongly that theme is one of the more important things in a role-playing game, especially if you're trying to sell it to other people. If you don't have a cogent theme when you're coming up with a concept, a lot of times you're going to be wasting a lot of creative effort in just going out into avenues that don't support the general theme, that don't support an overriding principle that helps you to build and construct your world. And a lot of times that can be wasted time, that can be wasted energy, and it can lead to a confusing chatter by the time anybody else interfaces with it that just might not serve you very well. So I've always felt that having a solid theme around your game really does help. And honestly, it's one of the solid strengths of the various Fate games and Powered by the Apocalypse games, is that they take this core set of rules, but the theme is imprinted on by the direction that you go. Taking the Fate core book by itself may let you tell any story you want, but you have to provide the theme. You have to do all that. Getting any of the extra books along with it that give you a world and a vector gives you a theme that you can cling to and sell your players on and really have a much easier time telling your overall story. If I pull out Leaves of Chiaroscuro, written by my friend Megan Bennett Burks, for Fate, and I run Fate using that system, there are numerous themes. What does it mean to be human when there are all these other not quite humans running around still doing things, but I'm rubbing shoulders with things that have scales. They talk my language and everything, but is that something that gets addressed? Is the political structure that can survive, reminiscent of Italy in more Renaissance periods, going to be drastically changed by all of the politicking that goes on? That's written right into the game. How am I interfacing with all of this in a world that people have supernatural powers and abilities, where I can try to be a person who just gets by or tries to master all of it, maybe by again inciting the differences between people and drawing on that as a strength. Or maybe it's because I'm a person who seems to have a knack for getting along with everybody and can get along with them if they've got horns and wings, or if they're just down on their luck human, and interfacing and drawing connections. That is a strength of that game. The world that you're put into has drive, elements, purpose that all serve a common theme. So that's my thoughts on theme. Hopefully they strike a chord, and maybe they're something that you can use yourself. But I always have found theme to be very important and interesting in games, and I found that that is a very good key to success in not only just in publishing things and things that I choose to buy, but also in selling a game to your players and really helping them to find out what's important in the game that you're going to run. So, there you go. If you have any ideas yourself, please feel free to leave in the comments. Anything you want to talk about or criticize an idea or something, feel free. I'd love to open up that dialogue. And if you enjoyed this, feel free to like and subscribe. I appreciate that. Also, if you find someone else who has a hard time with theme and struggles with the idea, feel free to share with them. Maybe my words can help them out in finding the core essence of what they're working on. And if you wish to discuss anything else like that, feel free to reach out to me through the comments, going to my Omnisci Facebook group or Dungeon Tutor Facebook group. Drop me a line. So, thanks very much for joining me. Until next time, and there will be next times, and there have been plenty previous, so feel free to look at the whole playlist. Thank you, and farewell.